Guidance. This feels like a weird cousin build to Aster Crown in that it is situationally extremely powerful, but lacks flexibility and practicality, mostly owing to its weapon selection. The handheld 4-cell missile launcher, the earshot, and the stun baton don't synergize well together. While the missile launcher is a good weapon, there's a sizable delay between salvos for an ARM unit. The back-breakingly heavy grenade launcher is devastating, but the reload time is longer than my attention span. By the time the next shell is ready, I'll have forgotten this weapon exists. Therefore, you must use the missiles carefully to maintain stagger, because if you miss even one salvo, the bar will start decaying. However, if you do manage to fill it up, your reward is a punish from the stun baton. It's a weapon generally shunned by the community, but I found it's pretty neat. The stats screen says it's got 3 consecutive strikes, but it's actually way more. 6 according to the wiki. Each individual strike is pretty weak, but if we add up the entire combo, the full amount of damage is quite competitive with the rest of the melee weapons. Furthermore, the charged attack is also powerful and creates a delayed burst of electricity, not unlike the stun needle. This weapon is edged out slightly by other melee punishers, but it is not far behind and very fun to use. The 4th unit is a shield. Nothing I will say about it will blow your mind, so let's move on. The frame is a full tetrapod set from Arquebus. You already know my feelings on this set of legs, but the full course comes out at around 10k AP, which is not impressive and should have been higher. At least the stability is respectable at around 2300. The booster is unimpressive and doesn't seem specialized in anything, but the FCS is in lock correction time. Not that it matters a huge amount with this arsenal. The generator is pretty weak, and I don't know why this one was chosen. Pulse protection is our expansion here, and is what I would have picked. The only aspect here that really affects the performance of this AC is the synergy of the legs with the earshot, as the hover lets you fire while moving, and also helps with hitting things from above. I described Aster Crown as an arena demon, and I found myself thinking the same about this AC. It's especially powerful against enemies with low stability, which will be staggered by a single missile salvo and earshot grenade, for a quick kill, or nearly. However, having one shield, one melee punish, and one extremely slow and unwieldy grenade launcher means you're left with just your missiles to take care of most of the heavy lifting, and that's not enough. I think if the shield was swapped out for a Gatling cannon, or even just another missile launcher, that alone would rocket this preset up a tier or even 2. The generator and frame needs some work too, but I find myself enjoying my time in this machine, however narrow its operating window may be. UEU. We're finally here, and where do I even start? If you ever find yourself thinking these presets are not being deliberately and shitified, just load this preset. You don't even have to play a mission, just looking at the assembly is enough. 2 Iridium grenade launchers and that's it for weapons. You also get the shield, which couldn't be worse if it tried. The Basho frame offers 11k AP and a meager stability. The booster is the Kikaku again, and the lack of a melee weapon really robs these 2 elements of its best performing stats, melee thrust and melee attack spec. The FCS is pretty weak as well, but the generator is alright at least. No expansion either, not that I'd have expected better. Let's get into the myriad of reasons why this build doesn't work. The fact that your only 2 offensive options are either Iridium or Kick means that you have to stop moving to be doing any damage, and not just for a moment. Remember, grenade launchers have a longer firing animation than bazookas. They aren't even very good. 2 of them won't be enough to stagger most enemies, and you've already exposed yourself to so much fire just to get those 2 shots off. Furthermore, the long reload time coaxes you into taking another shot at inopportune times, so that the stagger bar doesn't start decaying. This makes you more likely to miss or eat a grenade yourself. The punish damage isn't even good, and many tanky bosses will drain your ammo supply dry. This preset is an absolute nightmare to use. Having to stop moving to deal absolutely any damage is agonizing. I was expecting it to get hard, but holy fuck, I was not expecting it to get this tedious. I'll be honest here, I did not beat the game with this preset. The first flare of a big problem was destroy the dam complex. Since I was meant to be role-playing Little ZE, I was gonna betray and eliminate the two red guns. However, I spent days upon days fighting them, and I was getting pretty close. However, the previously mentioned characteristics of the Iridium were baiting me into taking too many shots and leaving myself vulnerable. With my meager durability, I had to slink around like a rat, exploiting their AI and taking easy pot shots when I could, before scampering back to safety. This, in turn, left me without any ammo before I could finish the fight. I realized at some point that I just stopped launching the game. I feel like maybe I could have done this fight legit, but I would lose any interest in this game before this happened, if I kept trying. Therefore, I picked the alternate choice and swallowed the first rule break of all this series of challenge runs. Let me put this straight. I've done some hard shit with these presets. I beat Escort the Strider with Aster Crown. That took me 3 days. I beat Snail Teus with Ephemera. That took me 4 days. It was hard, grueling and frustrating, but I felt enough of a drive to just keep trying. Not with UEU. Despite circumventing this hurdle, I was playing very little. I remember recording the early parts of the run, but I cannot find those clips, so I cannot verify the dates. The earliest clip I can find was almost 2 months ago. It took me at least 2 months to complete this playthrough. I was playing only once every few days, and when I did, I only suffered through 2 or 3 missions at a time. It wasn't extremely hard, but it was just boring and tedious as all fuck. The next problem was the Enforcer. My patience was already hanging on by a thread, and I knew this could very well be the end. I managed to pull through, and still continued on until the final major decision. I decided to check if Air or Snail Teus were going to be harder before I made the choice, and it wasn't looking good. Both of them had just too much health. My weapons weren't doing enough punish damage, and the pulse shields were a big problem. That's when I looked up a video. I remembered popping into my recommendations of someone playing Armored Core 6 with UEU. The guy claimed to have over 1000 hours in the game and be a speedrunner too, and he couldn't beat either of them. More than that, he couldn't beat All Mind either, which concluded his challenge run in failure. Let me bring up his words here because they reflect extremely well how I felt.
That's the thing. UAU is so bad, it makes me not want to play the game anymore. I lived through every other preset. I've lived through the Abomination, through S-rank PvP, through speedrunning every category and winning, even trying to make new ones. I have over 1,000 hours in this game, yet this is what stops me. Not because it is difficult, but because it is tedious and not fun. That's the true crime of this preset. It turns my favourite game of all time into something I don't enjoy playing, into something not fun, something that all of these things I mentioned previously, regardless of challenge, weren't able to do either.
My mind was already made up. I picked the Liberator path, got to Snail Teus, tried a few times, and then I recreated the build I used to beat the game for the first time, minus the paint job. It's a lot worse than I remembered it being, but I still beat him first try, and then beat the final mission with an actually fun preset, so that I could reset the new game cycle. I don't feel bad about skipping the finale of the game. I knew that if I got too hung up on these bosses, I would just never touch the game again. It would be dramatic to say that Snail Teus or Air had broken me, but I think the real breaking point was the dam complex. Ever since then, I had to force myself to even play this preset. The main difficulty with this AC isn't even the fight with your enemies, it's the battle with yourself, not to close the game and go touch grass. There's a lot of other fun games I could be playing in this time, so I chose to leave behind UEU. When I started making this series, I thought that I was going to add an additional tier, just for Rummy. However, with how much suffering was brought upon me by Little ZE's AC, it's hers that I have to put somewhere special. You'd have to pay a fortune for me to load this preset ever again. Infection. Coming from the unholy awfulness that was UEU, I'm getting whiplash at how competent this AC is. It's a biped with a double of the weaker pulse gun, along with a back-mounted plasma cannon, and an alright shield. The handheld units spew out a significant amount of damage at close range. None of these weapons deal a huge amount of stagger, but the plasma cannon is certainly the better of the two options. I had my reservations about this weapon, and I'm still not satisfied with it. The AoE on the primary fire really isn't big enough for any crowd control, and even the charged attack is still not very impressive. Therefore, the best way to use it is on singular targets, and hope that they stay within the bubble for the damage to rack up. The ammo capacity is also disappointingly low on all the units, and that's the main weakness of this AC. I actually found a neat synergy here with the shield. The plasma cannon forces you to assume stance when firing, but you can deploy the shield at any time during this process to protect yourself while vulnerable. It's almost a game changer with how often you want to be using the plasma weapon. The shield is actually pretty good, in that I rarely found myself overheating it. However, you'll still be expending a lot of time preparing to fire the cannon. Furthermore, the low projectile velocity mean you'll be whiffing a lot of shots. The charged attack deals some impressive damage and stagger. It can usually fill up most of the bar. However, this overheats the gun, and that makes missing very costly. Once you do manage to stagger the enemy, unloading with the pulse guns is a punisher not to be sneered at. The damage is quite high, and the same goes for the plasma cannon itself. However, there's weapon combos that still outperform the ones on this AC, while being far easier to use and more flexible. Why faff around with charging up plasma shots, deploying the shield at the right time, and keeping the enemy in the bubble when big boom do trick? The frame's pretty average in all aspects. There's a part of me that would like to see this AC as a tetrapod to get rid of the firing stance on the plasma cannon. However, this would make the pulse guns harder to use due to their reduced mobility. This makes me think the weapons combo maybe isn't quite the best set. The booster is the Alula, though the control on this AC doesn't feel like it matches the specs. I don't know why they picked the RLF FCS as two main weapons, are far better at close range than medium. The generator has a very good energy firearm spec. Finally, an all-energy armed AC with such a generator. I don't know why this isn't more common. Unfortunately, this results in the recharge specs on the generator being exceptionally painful to work around, but the damage is worth it. No expansion, which I believe will be the case until the end of the list, since the lower ranked mercs don't have the OS chips to unlock any. All in all, this preset feels well put together and the synergies are quite nice. Staggering enemies with pulse defenses is a breeze, and staggering those without is less of a breeze, but the plasma cannon is doing some work. Despite this, I'm not going to put this AC very high. It's impressively designed for the quality of parts, but better presets just don't have to deal with the downside of a low ammo capacity, weak crowd control, assuming stance, bad range, flexibility, etc, etc. I know we're firmly within the territory of presets, deliberately using bad parts to represent their low ranks, parts access, and funds, but I'm rating these as they are in the hands of the player. Bitter Promise. With how low down we are, I was pleasantly surprised with this AC, and it's refreshing that its biggest problem is just that the punish damage isn't quite there, which can be said for so many presets. The weaponry includes the Ransetsu burst rifle and spread bazooka, which are reliable kinetic guns. The other hand unit is this laser pistol. I haven't really tried building around one of those weapons, and now I wish I have, because it's quite good. Decent fire rate, range, and damage output. The heat capacity is also very high, and I almost never had to worry about it overheating. It's got a charged attack, which spews out a bunch of shots in a burst. I tried using it as a punisher, but the spread bazooka is better, unless you're at a significant distance. I also really tried using the burst attack on the Ransetsu, but it just doesn't work. Guys, I really tried. It's weak to punish, and the AI is extremely good at evading it otherwise. Stick to spamming the two main guns, and fire the bazooka when you're up close. You can use these decent shields to help with this purpose. The frame is a modified Melander, but with this arquebus torso, and the booster is the Flugel, which has good stats on paper, and the machine feels quite average for a biped in mobility. Unfortunately, the FCS is kind of bad. It's the one with optimal missile lock correction time, which this AC has no use for. The other specs are pretty bad, and I do find myself struggling to hit mobile enemies in some circumstances. Furthermore, the generator is just really weak in all aspects, and I wish the capacity was higher. The recharge also tends to scream for a bit more juice, but that's not that common. Like I said, this preset is quite reliable and surprisingly flexible. I even managed to first try the All Might boss fight using it, which usually takes me many attempts. Spam that double trigger, and spam it a lot, because the high ammo capacities of your main guns let you. The main drawback is the punish damage not being mega, and the internals being kind of crap.